I wanted to just let you guys know that I'm a big fan of Charli XCX. I love Charli XCX. Charli XCX is fucking incredible. And this recent album that she put out called BRAT might be another contender of album of the year for me. I know I keep mentioning on this particular podcast, every song or every album I listen to is album of the year. But I'm also not in the business of like recommending or talking about albums I didn't enjoy, because I'm not a fucking critic. I'm just a guy with a fucking opinion. But honestly, Charli XCX's recent album, BRAT, might be one of the best pop albums I've listened to in a very, very, very long time. Now, having listened to Charli XCX's album called BRAT, I now understand why a bunch of people didn't like Dua Lipa's Permanent Vacation, because it got panned. A lot of people didn't like it, even though it's got some good singles on there. A lot of people say that album wasn't really good. Now I get it, because this is top tier pop music. This is top tier pop music. It's so top tier, this pop music, until recently I really listened to the lyrics, and a lot of these tunes are incredibly introspective. They're incredibly emotional. They're incredibly grown up. She's saying a lot of things on these records, but the tunes, the beats are so good, you forget what she's talking about. It's almost like, you know, peak Sade, for instance, right? You listen to some Sade songs and you forget, if you don't listen to the actual lyrics, if you don't read the lyrics, you forget that she's actually talking a lot about some painful things. Abuse, divorce, kids, family. Same with this album. And it almost reminds me of a Madonna album. I think it's called Erotica. Madonna put out this album and it's a very underrated. I think it's like 1988, 1999 or something. It's an incredible album, about 18 tracks, full of fucking bangers. And that Madonna album, Erotica, for me was like, it was a perfect balance between like pop, perfect balance between like dance hits, because that was also the era, like that late 90s, early 2000s era was the era where every pop act had like a really banging R&B song, a really banging pop song, and a really banging dance record. Nowadays, it's kind of coming back into trend now because everyone's into this whole like Y2K movement or Y2K trend, and all of those artists were, you know, doing that sort of thing anyway. But going back to the whole Y2K thing, I think the reason why this album might be really good, and similar to the whole Madonna thing, Charli XCX is a weird girl because she's quite young. I think she's like 31, 32. But she's also been around since she's like 16. It's almost like a Miley Cyrus thing. She's young, but she's been around for so long that she actually experienced Bloghouse. She was around during the Bloghouse era. She was around during the indie sleaze era. And she was kind of around, sort of, you know, felt the influence of the Y2K era too. Like the genuine Y2K era, right? Fucking Will Smith, Millennium fucking song and shit, right? So I think because of that, and because she's been making music consistently, she's been able to tap into that sound in an authentic way. Not in like some cosplay way, like how Camila Cabello's doing, right? Camila Cabello now is almost basically trying to copy Charli XCX's aesthetic and everything. She's completely changed what she's about and her, you know, what she makes and shit. And it almost feels like she's, you know, performing karaoke. But when you listen to Charli XCX, you're like, oh, this is what it means when you're really about that life. When you've really been around. When you've really gathered all these fucking influences over the years, you fine-tuned your sound, but you've kept doing your thing. Because that's something I've kind of realized when I listened to this album called BRAT. She's been doing this sound for a long time. She's just refined it to this final point. It's almost like the opposite, not the opposite, but it's almost like the opposite of like what Kanye does, which everybody loves. Kanye, with each album, he changes what he does. He changes his approach. He changes his sound, which we all love. But other artists, they prefer to just fine-tune what they already do with each album to the point where you get to like your masterpiece. And I feel like this is the masterpiece for Charli XCX in a discography. This is going to be the one people are like, okay, she's the one. Because forget the marketing. The marketing for this was fucking insane. The rollout for this was brilliant, right? Everything about it was brilliant. But just from the beginning of this, like 360, all the way to the, like, it's just an incredible album. I don't even want to spoil it if you haven't listened to it already. It's an incredible one. Like I said, the beats are so good. The productions are so good. AG Cook is all over it. PC Music vibes. You know what I want. It almost feels like a tribute to Sophie in a way as well. Like if Sophie was around, she'd fucking love this as well. RIP to Sophie, gone way, way too soon. And it's just an incredible pop record. It's so good. I can't wait to see her live. And I think she's playing in London in November, which again is funny because, you know, a bunch of people have been cancelling dates and shit. And I think nowadays you probably have to earn people's ticket purchase, and she's earned mine. This album is so good. I'm definitely going to see her play in November. So as an outro track, I'm going to play one of those as my outro track to obviously end the podcast. But I also want to read a review that everyone's glowing after, which is a review courtesy of Pitchfork that speaks a little bit about the album. And they've reviewed it and gave it an 8.6. And again, I'm not, I don't really, I don't really go to Pitchfork or to all these sites to check what people like and what they don't like. I just check, the new releases. I follow NFR podcasts on Twitter and a few other people like Mimi that does all the music shit and stuff, and just download the music and listen to it. I'm a little bit old school and rough that way. I'll just listen to stuff. If I don't like it, I'll just delete it, but I'm not going to read a review and, be inspired to listen to something because of a review on a website. When I think about it, actually, I'm thinking like, man, get well soon to Fearless London. Because if Fearless London was well and was maybe in the right headspace, he could be killing it now too, Thinking about Fearless London's sound, thinking about his inspirations, thinking about how long he's been around, he could be killing it now too if he was consistently putting out music and shit. Because he was kind of ahead of his time when you think about it. So yeah, get well soon, Fearless London. And to me, this is a great point that they made, that the last album was the one that she made to kind of appease her label. She used their resources, she tapped into all their contacts, she put out an album that was, essentially her kind of sellout album. It did well, commercially, but culturally it didn't really shift or move the needle the way BRAT has. I've seen way more authentic love and appreciation for BRAT than I've ever seen for her previous albums. The streets are really feeling BRAT, really feeling it. It continues. The moment bent to Charli as the winter turned to spring, beginning in the February Boiler Room set that broke the company's RSVP record within a matter of hours. Are you hearing that? Charli XCX Boiler Room event in February broke their record of RSVPs within an hours. And think about all the people that have debuted on fucking Boiler Room over the years. And Charli XCX was the one to blow it. To be fair though, a lot of people have been looking forward to her set. I think this has been a long demanded, long hyped Boiler Room set, and it did deliver. I watched the stream and it was fucking fantastic. Everyone fucking killed it. Like it kind of reminded you of like those old indie sleaze, indie dance, sweatbox warehouse raves that we all went to in the early 2000s. So they did a good job of kind of, making that vibe real again and shit. But god damn it, bro, that's a big look. It continues. In a sweaty Bushwick warehouse, alongside BRAT producers AJ Cook and Easy Fun, she debuted the album for the first single, Von Dutch, whose rivering synths and trigger flashbacks to the mid-hundreds of electro, of Boys Noise and the Bloody Beetroots. Bloody hell, I remember those, innit? I remember Bloody Beetroots. With a hitch before the drop you can feel inside your gut. It's okay to just admit that you're jealous of me, she yelps, winking but meaning it. The imperial shriek of continues on with its follow-up Club Classics, over whose stripped down bounce she declares her intentions to dance for her own tracks all night. Is it just me, or is 360 her best pure pop tune in ages? I definitely agree. Especially when you listen to the lyrics, it's always going to make you laugh. The video teaming with It Girls feels heavy-handed but not unearned. For years, both Charli and her critics seemed distractingly obsessed with her position, the darling of the underground who either would or could not graduate to main pop girl. Then something shifted and it's already seemed to matter. She has something they didn't. She was cool. And that's it. And I think she's cool because she's been around so long. And she's adapted, she's evolved, she's grown, she's changed, she's fine-tuned. And she's now delivered her magnus fucking opus, which is BRAT, essentially. But nowadays you can't buy cool because everyone's trying to just buy cool nowadays. Everyone's just trying to wear an outfit and be cool. Wear big baggy jeans, wear Brazil tops, wear fucking go fast glasses, wear really gaudy bags, horrible hats and shit just to kind of look cool. But they're not, at the essence, they're not really cool. And she's one of the rare ones who's actually cool without actually trying to be cool. It continues. With the charts full of warmed over disco and weepy Reddit detective pop, I'd have happily accepted 15 high-end throwback bangers about being iconic and dressing like you're on the Symbol Life, as Charli seemed to tease. As a homage of French dance music of the late 90s and 2000s, but the euphoric filler houses of a Sayadorn and Roulette de Ed Banger's heavy metal disco BRAT delivers. Oh, Ed Banger also produced on that album. No wonder it sounds so good. I hear Bangladesh and Brax in the compressed ecstasy of Talk Talk, the sweetness of Breakbot on Apple. Oh, Breakbot, man. Honestly, Ed Banger Records back in the day. They might make another resurgence too, actually. Ed Banger Records. They were so good back in the day. RIP DJ Mehdi. DJ Mehdi on the piano drama, Mean Girls, Rewind, and a love letter to MySpace era naivety is served up in a ditzy spoken word somewhere between Ufi's Pop Glock. Wow, Ufi. Do you remember Ufi? Jesus Christ, man. All these fucking icons. And the Teachers of Peaches. Charli reprises The Affect of Girls So Confusing, a song that busts the floodgates of a dozen indie dance memories I was certain I'd repress. Not 1 ounce in 42 minutes does the momentum fade. But the past singles, Charli complicates the idea she's introduced of the impetuous bad bitch whose ideas and the world loves to jack, beginning to explore much more fascinating themes: jealousy, narcissism, girl power. On I Might Say Something Stupid, whose Gustaffelstein piano chords distill the essence of the early Justice. By the way, Gustaffelstein at fucking Coachella, marvelous. Justice at Coachella, marvelous. The outfit he wore, Gustaffelstein, the mask, marvelous. She returns to her liminal position in the industry, describing with rightly precision the feeling of being the least famous person at a party. Snag my tights out on the lawn chair, guess I'm a mess and I play the role. I've never had a Charli lyric bounce around in my head the way that lines from Apple have, with its curious fruit allegory, and wonderfully vague remarks about driving to the airport. On Sympathy is a Knife, whose buzzsaw synths and modulated banshee howls sound most like Charli we've known, she spirals over an acquaintance who taps her insecurity. I couldn't even be her if I tried. Don't want to see her backstage at my boyfriend's show, she goes. Fingers crossed behind my back, I hope they break up quick. There are a handful of cute songs clearly directed to said boyfriend, the 1975's George Daniel, now her fiancé. But Brat's most intriguing moments regard her relationship with women, which she unpacks with striking candor. The pop feminist discourse of the past decade never seemed to make it to a topic of competition, but on the sparkly, scuzzy Girls So Confusing, Charli goes there, painting a picture of Pia, whom she frequently compared, who's either her long-lost BFF or perhaps wants to see her eat shit. It's hard to say. Surely Dirks Moore will have a field day with the lines, "You're all about writing poems, but I'm all about throwing parties." But for now, let's enjoy the mystery. People are saying that's probably Lana Del Rey. This record in particular, it's amazing, by the way. She's spitting and really going for it. Girls So Confusing. But people are saying she might be talking about Lana Del Rey, obviously because of that line about you write poems. It continues. If you're the certain kind of online, you'll pretty quickly recognize the motifs of Mean Girls. Cigarettes, vocal fry, daddy issues, Catholicism. Yes, it's the first major label pop song inspired by the Red Scare podcast. I love it. I wanted to go on Red Scare, actually. I really would love her to go on Red Scare. I think that would be a really good interview. She deserves to sit down with people who won't, want to ask her questions about fucking Palestine and shit. I would fucking love her to sit down with Red Scare girls and just have a nice, candid, chill, mean girl chat. That might actually be really good. I would really fucking like that. I think Anna would ask some good questions. Dasha would cackle in the background, asking her about who she fucked last and shit. It'll be fun. I think she should go on Red Scare. Get her on the pod. It's also a counter, a catchy one at that, to what the relatable era demands of artists. Is there a way to be a pop star without being a role model? Can a woman feel empowered without being a girl boss? Can she reject the pose of perma victim and still make resonant art? These ideas feel substantial in new ways for Charli. Writing Brat, she quietened her inner industry pro who strung together vowel words and buzzwords that rhymed, approaching her lyrics as if it were typing a gossipy text to a friend. The method worked, nudging songs about the subjects like grief and motherhood past the usual cliches of confessional writing and into reality. The somber So I is about missing Sophie, Charli's late mentor. It's also about how terrifying it can be to be friends with a genius. Much ink will be spilled about I Think About It All the Time, whereas a visit to a friend who recently became a mother inspires some life-altering questions about what's her freedom worth. But what gives the story life is striking admission that, alongside tenderness and joy, she feels a sting of jealous FOMO. She's a radiant mother and she's a beautiful father. Now they both know these things I don't. You might call it her most vulnerable record to date if you're into that sort of thing. So, you know, a good review, you know, a bit wordy unnecessarily, but in general, it's one of the best records I've heard because of the vulnerability, but it doesn't give you the vulnerability without the hits. It's almost like the opposite of Jay-Z 444, right? Where he's saying a lot of like real shit, but it's basically boring. You can't play that shit outside of your house. But this, she's saying a lot of shit. She's speaking from a real place, a lot of raw emotion. She's spilling out her feelings, questioning herself, you know, poking fun of herself, very self-aware, but also very critical, very true, very just right and shit. The songs are always the perfect length. Everything's just perfect about the album. I recommend you check it out. So as my end track for this particular podcast, I'm going to end this with one of my favorite songs from the album, which is called Back to Back.